Good afternoon and welcome to Policy Matters. My name is Dustin Goverlow, and with us today we have Judy Estenson. Judy is challenging Doug Goehring, who is the current Agriculture Commissioner for the state of North Dakota, for the Republican nomination for that office. Judy, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and why you are running for Agriculture Commissioner?
Well, a little bit about myself and why I'm running is a lot more than a little bit. But first of all, I want to thank you for saying my name correctly, because I understand that Joel Heitkamp calls me Julie Estenson every time he gets on the radio. So thank you for getting Judy correct. We all know that name recognition is important in a campaign. And on that, what do you need to know about me? I have been married to a farmer and a rancher. His name is Hal. For 35 years, we've raised 5 children. We have livestock and a variety of crops. And I'm also a nurse on the side in that very busy life. I received a Bachelor of Arts degree from college. And I think that what got me in the race is a lot of different things. I just think that we have been watching policy, and we've watched the government become more and more intrusive in our lives, whether it's in medicine or whether it's in agriculture. I think in all aspects of our life we just see more and more regulation. And I think that I'm all about less regulation. I think that in North Dakota we are strong, self-sufficient people who would like to take care of ourselves, and I think we do it the best. And so over several policies that I saw in the last few years, I decided that we needed less regulation and we needed a new ag commissioner. And I had some people who felt the same way, and they got behind me. And now I've got the Liberty PAC behind me, and I just think that's a very short version of why I'm running for North Dakota agriculture. But it's really just all about the future of your children and mine, and making sure that this great state remains a lot of opportunity for the future generations.
Now, you brought up regulation, and as we all know, Republicans like to tout themselves as the party against regulation. Obviously, even the worst Republicans, generally speaking, are not any worse than what some Democrats would like to have. There are exceptions, of course. But, you know, when it comes to a job like the Agriculture Commissioner, doesn't the legislature make most of the regulation and basically rely on the Ag Commissioner to implement that however they see fit?
I think that's absolutely correct description of the Agriculture Commissioner's job. But I've also seen that many, many times the Agriculture Commissioner has influence, great influence, on what legislation comes about in the state of North Dakota, or he could also prevent some legislation from happening in North Dakota. So I think that we need to make sure that we have somebody in the job that really understands how important it is to really protect animal agriculture and industry in general, if he has the opportunity to stand up for it. I just think that we have to be very cautious about allowing forces to come in that don't have agriculture's best interest at heart. And one of the things that kind of got this ball rolling was actually the Animal Protection Bill 2211. Our commissioner was very favorable for it, and I, on the other hand, felt that it was very dangerous and would have very, very many unintended consequences for the state. And so that is one issue in which we very much took different opposing views on what would be best for North Dakota.
Now, when you say outside influences, what is it that you are alluding to that the Ag Commissioner, Doug Goehring, did that he just shouldn't have done or that you would have done differently?
Well, I hate to talk for him, but from what I hear, his stance was that as North Dakotans, we needed to come to the table with the Humane Society of the United States. They're an outside influence. Their main goal would be to shut down animal agriculture. So I would not call them a friend of ag or North Dakota. And he felt that we needed to come to the table with them and try to update our animal protection bill. We do have one, and we had also had Measure 5, which had been promoted by HSUS, if I'm not incorrect, and it was about increasing animal protection in the state, and we had voted against that measure in the last election. So I feel like North Dakota people had already spoken about how they felt about increasing our laws or legislation regarding animal protection, and yet those people came in and were brought to the table, and there was a bill drafted that was, in my opinion, very dangerous. The bill did end up going through quite a bit of renovation and amendments and had fewer consequences, but still has a felony attached to animal protection. And I just feel that what should have taken place was that we should have stood behind North Dakota's vote and said, no, we don't need to change our animal legislation.
Do you think Commissioner Gehring and pretty much everybody who came out opposing Measure 5 dug themselves a hole that they couldn't get out of when they said to the public, you can vote against this, don't worry, we will pass something next session?
Yes, I do. I think that pretty much describes what somewhat happened. It was a promise that they would come up with something, so then how do you not go to the table and start trying to come up with something when you've made that promise to the public?
Mm-hmm. And what do you think the solution to that would be going forward?
You know, I guess when you're in public service, you need to be really careful what you promise.
Mm-hmm. Do you
so therefore, and I don't know if that answered your question. Maybe you were asking something more. I think that the commissioner's job is to make sure that they don't sit down with every outside influence and say, how can we work something out? I feel like the commissioner's job is really one of guardianship of agriculture in North Dakota, and it's to protect us at all costs and what's best for our interests. It's not to incrementally give up our livelihood and our freedom.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that part of the problem gets to be on the legislature's hands even more so because, you know, there's 141 legislators and only one ag commissioner. How much responsibility do you think the legislature and the committees that were involved, being in Republican supermajority control, how much responsibility do they have in letting what you have a disagreement with happen?
I think that you have to have a very workable communicating relationship, and I think any public service job requires a great leader in the fact that you have to be a great listener and a great communicator. And I think that you have to come to the table with all the knowledge that you have and have understood how the possible legislation will affect the public or the ag interests. And I think that you have to do that, and you have to be very, very careful. And then you have to communicate that to the legislatures. I'm not trying to place any blame, but I do believe from some communications that I've had with legislators that were a little bit frustrated with that bill, that there was not enough good communication, and that they felt they didn't have enough good information to begin with. And, you know, sometimes I'm sure in those legislative sessions, they're bombarded with information, and they sometimes are trusting the sources they have. So I think they really have to know that their ag commissioner is very knowledgeable in giving them very good information about what's best for North Dakota.
So what would you do as far as communicating with the legislature when an issue like this came up where the party as a whole, special interest groups who opposed the Measure 5, everybody was lined up against it saying the same thing, don't worry, we will do something. If you had been there or going forward, you know, looking at this measure or this law, I guess one, would you seek to have it amended? And two, how would you approach opposing things that are put on the ballot as far as dealing with the public opinion, because as you know, a lot of Republicans in the state basically govern by public opinion, and that started mostly under Governor Hoeven, more so than Governor Schaefer, but that's kind of been the way things have been done since the beginning of this last decade, since the year 2000. How would you do things differently as far as working with legislature in shaping egg policy?
I just think that, it's hard to go back and say, what would you have done differently? I wasn't there. Wasn't there in the start of the process. I think that all I can go back to is that people need to know one thing about me, and that is that I rarely beat around the bush. I'm usually pretty direct. I'm going to go out. I'm going to find the correct answers, and I'm going to be a good communicator. I think anyone that would want to approach me, get my input on something, I'm not going to sit back quietly and not say anything about things that are going to affect North Dakota. I'm going to be right out there. And when it comes to most regulation, I can tell you that you would have to have something compelling for me to see that regulation is positive. One of the things that I say is it doesn't really matter whether it's an egg or business. Increased regulation always takes money out of the pocket of the producer, and it always makes government grow. And I think I felt the same way very strongly that the Animal Protection Bill would be very harmful in several ways. It would grow those agencies that have to make sure that you're doing it correctly and to monitor it and to throw it into the court. I mean, all those things cost more taxpayer dollars. And so sometimes I think that we're big people in the state. We don't need somebody to tell us how to take care of our puppies and our kitties. So though that bill looked as though it was all about being humane to animals in general, it was going to have some very serious unintended consequences for people who were in the egg business. So we have to understand where it's coming from. We have to understand what its purpose is, and we have to make sure, no law is better than a law that's going to be harmful. So, sometimes I think we say yes because we think we need to satisfy people and protect people, when in fact, those very laws that are set out to do that end up being very harmful. Dustin, I just have probably an ending thought to add as well. I've never thought that leadership was about having a particular position. There's a quote by John Quincy Adams. He says, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, and become more, you are a leader. And I think that my actions, I hope, will inspire others to dream more, learn more, and become more, because we have a free North Dakota, because there's still big dreams to dream, because there won't be so much regulation. It gets very cumbersome and very difficult. And, though I know the commissioner, part of his job is regulatory, I think if we minimize that and we look more towards increasing the opportunity for our youth in North Dakota, that things will be a lot better for the future. Just one closing theme. I want people to know that I have joined this candidacy in order to unite the Republican Party, not to divide, and that I'm just hoping that the future Republican Party with Judy Estenson can be victorious in the fall against Ryan Taylor. I believe that I am the candidate that can beat Ryan Taylor, and I want everyone to think long and hard about which candidate will go forth the strongest in the fall.
Well, thank you for joining us. With us today has been Judy Estenson, candidate for North Dakota Agriculture Commissioner. Thanks for joining us. Coming up next, we will be speaking with Doug Gehring himself, North Dakota's Agriculture Commissioner, about this race, about what he sees as the future of agriculture in North Dakota, about his job, his office, his responsibilities, and what he thinks he could do differently as well.